I started as a catering manager and I was in the hospitality industry probably 7 or 8 years, ended up as the moved to a different hotel that was actually worldwide, still is, and up to the national sales manager position.
What helped you or pulled you into the mental health space after being in retail and education and on the sales side, et cetera? Why that move, if I may ask?
And what I saw was a need for children, because I was over in the education space, but for children who were basically kicked out of 2, 3, 4 different schools, and they were all put at our school. So there was a lot of failure, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of anger. And because my father had worked in alternative education, I had a heart for those who are less than, those who are forgotten, those who are thrown away.
Welcome to the Spirituality in Leadership podcast. I'm Andrew Cohn. Spirituality in Leadership is a platform for conversations with leaders at all levels about bringing our spiritual dimensions to our leadership, our teams, our workplaces, and all areas of our lives in order to achieve greater success and fulfillment and build and sustain healthier organizations. If you'd like to connect with me to talk further about these topics and or about individual or team coaching, leadership workshops, or team alignment, please go to my website, lighthouseteams.com. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome back to the Spirituality in Leadership podcast. I'm so pleased to have with me Dacia Moore, hailing out of Houston, Texas. Dacia's got a really interesting background, which I will ask her to talk about in just moments. She's a transformational speaker, an author, and mental health advocate. She's a former nonprofit executive director who works with leaders at all levels and communities in different places in different ways. And I really look forward to hearing about your experience and your connection to the topic. But first, Dacia, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Spirituality is important in my life, and it helps with being the North Star. I love that your image that you have. It is the North Star for many of us in leadership. So thanks for having me.
Of course. It's great to have you here. Thank you. I'd love to start with your talking with a little bit about your background as you would describe it, highlight what's important for you, and ultimately kind of what leads you to, frankly, having your priorities where they are and energizing you to do the work that you do.
Well, I'll tell you, give you the thumbnail. My father was what I perceived growing up as a little girl, an excellent leader. My mom and dad got divorced. He stayed in Brooklyn, New York. My mom moved to Detroit, Michigan. So I would go back and forth during the holidays, and I would see my father. I would go to work with him. He was the vice principal of the school. And my perception was that everybody just kind of fawned over him. He would say, it was like the E.F. Hutton commercial. He would say something and everybody would stop and listen, right? That was my idea of leadership. And then when I went to Michigan State, did all the things, moved to Kansas City, that's where I had a lot of my professional career. And I really struggled with my leadership style because I was not like my father. He was an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm funny, but he was really funny. He told a lot of jokes. So my journey of becoming what I perceive as a good leader, based on the feedback that I got from my staff in this most recent role, it was quite a journey, and I learned a number of things. Number one, there are all flavors of leaders. Number two, leaders can be born. Yes, that's true, but they also can be made. And you can always improve your leadership skills by listening to podcasts like this, by reading books, and self-improvement. So we often, especially in America, have this vision of what a leader is. John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, it's dating me, but, the strong, silent, handsome type, right? No, that is not always the best leadership style.
Wait, are you suggesting that leadership is not connected to being handsome? Oh, you're totally bursting my bubble here. No, please continue.
There have been studies, Andrew, about how people who are attractive are more susceptible, or not susceptible, but have more influence.
Yeah,
And
I think Yeah, well, similar to the, the taller candidate tends to be voted for. I
Right.
mean, there are these associations. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue.
No, 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 no. So there are leaders of all flavors, all styles. I went through a divorce in the early 90s, and helped, that divorce triggered a spiritual awakening in me because I really struggled with the broken dreams that I had at that time. And I went to counseling. My counselor helped me. And when I finished, I said, I want to help other people the way you helped me, which is why I became a counselor and then, got some advanced degrees and I'm working on my doctorate. So, but my spirituality, my faith really helped carry me through that difficult time. There was a lot of shame, a lot of disappointment and but I was still in a leadership role. So, I'm going to work and telling people, giving them direction, listening, leading, but struggling inside. And those two things have really been what has motivated me to talk about mental health and leadership because leadership can be very isolating. It can be extremely challenging, but also very rewarding when you achieve the goals that you set out in your strategic plan or in your operational plan or whatever kind of planning that the leaders who listen to this podcast do. So
Hmm.
that's it in a nutshell.
So, could you give us a little bit of a sense of some of the important stopovers or perhaps steps up through the course of your leadership? Because I know you've talked with me about your being in executive director roles in nonprofits. So, I'd love to hear a little bit about what some of those stops have been. Because in a minute, when you start talking about some of what you've learned and some of the lessons and some of the key takeaways and some stories, it would be useful for me and others to know, well, tell us about your experience and where you're drawing from.
Sure, sure. Well, I have done a lot of things. So I
It
moved.
doesn't mean you're old, by the way. Does not mean you're old.
I have varied interests. So I started my professional career as an assistant buyer for Macy's, and I did that for about a year, and then I moved over to the hospitality industry. I started as a catering manager and I was in the hospitality industry probably 7 or 8 years, ended up as the national, moved to a different hotel, a hotel that was actually worldwide, still is, and moved up to the national sales manager position. So that had a lot of responsibility in terms of the kinds of clients that we sought after, as well as managing the sales staff. So did that. Then moved from the hospitality to education and the higher education. So I worked at a community college, first in basically their sales office. It was recruitment and then moved up to administration, where I did some associate work as an educator there, also adjunct faculty, and then moved into mental health and started in a nonprofit organization as the day treatment therapist, all the way up to vice president of programs for that nonprofit, and then moved over to be the executive director of a different nonprofit. So sales is kind of an underlying theme in meeting with people and just really advocating for whatever is the thing that I'm representing. So that has been my world.
Thank you. And what helped you or pulled you into the mental health space after being in retail and education and on the sales side, et cetera? Why that move, if I may ask?
Sure, sure. My plan was actually to become a president of a university, and so in higher ed really emphasizes education. And so at the time I only had my bachelor's degree, so I went to get my master's degree in counseling because of the personal experience that I had with my counselor. And as part of that degree, I had to do clinicals. So I did my clinicals at a nonprofit and I happened to know the executive director, and he said, "Come over here, do your clinicals, and that'll be great." Well, I loved it when I did worked at the nonprofit. So I was still working in higher ed, getting completing my master's degree and doing my clinicals at the nonprofit residential treatment. And what I saw was a need for children because I was over in the education space, but for children who were basically kicked out of two, three, four different schools, and they were all put at our school. So there was a lot of failure, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of anger. And because my father had worked in alternative education, I had a heart for those who are less than, those who are forgotten, those who are thrown away. And when I saw that the teacher at the time was passing out worksheets, and that was her style of educating these kids who were already so low in in their academic career, already so low and had experienced a lot of rejection. And from my experience of my dad, and my mom was also in education at Wayne State University, I felt that I could help them and that school. So they offered me a job. After my clinicals, they asked me to stay. They gave me an offer, and it was an okay offer. You know, nonprofits don't pay a lot, but I felt I could make a difference, and that's what
Mm,
um, caused me to move.
mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And what I'm hearing when you share that story is like your values were ignited in that environment, or perhaps reignited. Not that being an assistant buyer at Macy's isn't something useful for society, but the way you're talking about this, it sounds like it's very much tapped into your values, your purpose, your what has meaning for you. Is that fair to say?
That is absolutely on point. Yes.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Right. So you reconnected to this, to serving this population. Your father, hopefully was around to see this and be proud of some of the choices that you made. I hope so. Um, and so I'm curious to know what are some of the, I mean, we're here talking about spirituality in leadership. You obviously are, as you shared, a person of faith that has helped you in times of transition and challenge. Now you're in this role where you can impact the lives of these kids and the teachers and the whole system as well. So, how did some of those lessons from your own spirituality and your own faith come to bear? How are you able to extend some of these deeper parts of you for the benefit of all of your constituents in this role?
Well, what I learned, the good and the bad, you know, so the good things that I learned were to spend time cultivating my spirituality and my faith and relying on my faith and being a person of integrity. My father would always say what you mean and mean what you say.
Mhm.
So, and in behavior management, that's very important. Consistency, integrity is very, very important. So I learned that and I had to live that out. And I had to live that out in my leadership role. I had some bad actors in staff, and I was young at the, you know, much younger at the time, and had to let some people go. It was very difficult. One story in particular, so during that time, we would do restraints. I mean, we would run after kids, they would run out the door, and we would run after them and get them and bring them back. We would restrain kids because many of them were very angry. And one of my staff put a student in a chokehold, which was
Mm.
a no-no. And he was a very exemplar staff person, but I had to let him go. And that was really, really hard because he begged me not to let him go. And nobody wanted to see him go, but it was a risk, and I couldn't. And we had training. I mean, and that was a big no-no. So those are some positive things. On the negative end, I stayed at that organization too long.
Mm.
That is a high burnout job, and I was burned out probably in year 7, and I stayed until year 9.
Mm.
So I was there too long and I knew that I was burned out. And the thing is, when people are burned out, you think as a leader nobody can see, but that's not true. Everybody else knew I was burned out because I was behaving, you know, I became apathetic. It was just, you know, all of the signs of burnout. And so, what I learned from that, especially in from a spiritual perspective, is to listen to my inner voice. I call it the Holy Spirit because I had been nudged to start my private practice and move over, but I was scared. I was just scared. I needed benefits. Benefits.
Hmm. Sure.
Uh, so I was fired. Yeah, a new executive director came in, and it's a new sheriff in town, and she cleaned out all the loyalists to the old ED, and I was one of them. 11 people left on the same day, maybe 2 days. Anyway, I was probably going to be fired even if those other people didn't leave, and I needed to be because I was not doing what I was capable of. So, a lesson that I learned in that situation was to listen to the Holy Spirit, listen to myself, listen to my inner voice. And I think this is a lesson for your listeners too, because some of them know what to do, but they are not doing it. And I find that to be the truth in mental health is people want so badly to start a business or transition to a different career or move to a new country or move to a new state, right? And they know it. They have a knowing, but fear gets in the way. And yeah, so I have learned, and through my faith, as my faith has gotten stronger, my fear has gotten smaller. It's still there, but now I'm at a stage in my life where I want to make the rest of my life be the best of my life. And I have less fear now because I only have, I don't know, X number of years left, but I'm going to do as much as I can between now and the time that I walk into eternity.
What a beautiful intention. So I want to ask you about something that, and some of the words that you use, because you are clearly coming from a place of faith, and you talk about the inner voice as the Holy Spirit. And the way you describe this, if I'm hearing correctly, my inner voice is the Holy Spirit, comma, my inner voice. And I hear you describing that, like for some people, they don't relate to the language of the Holy Spirit. Some people do. I've talked to a lot of people from a lot of backgrounds on the show, and um, like for you, it sounds like I'm good. It could be, it's the Holy Spirit, it's my inner voice, it's the quietest part inside of me. How do you, and some of this goes to the application of these ideas in inclusive ways, but it could be that if you're dealing with someone who doesn't come from that religious foundation, so are you comfortable describing the inner voice as, no, that's the inner voice inside of me? It doesn't need to be necessarily for someone else. It doesn't need to be a grand. I could see someone listening to this and going, well, I can connect with the voice inside myself, but I don't know about the Holy Spirit. That's a big one.
Sure. Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking of Native Americans, our brothers and sisters who are Native Americans, and they talk about their spirit guide.
Mm.
As I listen to you, I think about our Jewish brothers and sisters, and they talk about there's a framework that they go by in terms of working with integrity or leading with integrity and being authentic, and I think of people in the Buddhists and other religions, and it doesn't have to be a formal religious thing because I don't perceive myself as religious. I perceive myself as spiritual. And I think we all have a spirit. We have that inner knowing. When I was doing some studying with emotional intelligence, there is the vagus nerve that goes from the amygdala to the gut, right? And so we have now learned that when you have that gut feeling, it really is your brain picking up on cues in the environment that are so subtle, but that your brain puts them together. And because it is connected to the vagus nerve, which is in your gut, you have a gut feeling. So I think most people would say that, some people call it their conscience. And maybe that is what it is. I mean, doesn't matter what you call it. I think the practice of connecting with yourself and your that quiet, that still small voice within you. Because if we talk about being spiritual, then we're talking about something that we're able to connect to because it is around us, it is within us, It's everywhere. Spirit is everywhere. So how do we get to it? Well, it's not necessarily through our intellect, although that might be part of it, but it's through the quietness and the practices of hearing our voice and hearing ourselves. This world is so noisy that it is a gift to give yourself to stop scrolling, turn off the TV, put on some soft music, and reconnect with you. I can't tell you, Andrew, how many people, mostly women, who come to me and say, I don't know who I am anymore. I do not know who I am. I have been so steeped in motherhood and wifehood or career, and I have been climbing and grinding for so long. I don't even know what I like.
Hmm. Right. So, and what's implicit in that is what I like may have been sort of fed to me, right? And I incorporated that, and I internalized that belief system that says this is what I should like. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
This is what I should like. This is what you should be doing. If I'm 30, I should be grinding. 40, I should be here. 50, I should be there. I should be making this amount of money. And we're so purposeful and intentional that if we don't take the time to listen to that inner voice, we can be headed in the wrong direction
Mm, mm,
and not even know it.
absolutely. Well, and not know it until something happens like a burnout or a life crisis or something like that. And I feel compelled to say that although it's not the same, these issues of, waking up and thinking, who am I and whose rules have I been following is exactly what we do in the men's retreats that I lead and in the men's circles that I participate in. Again, it's not the same. I don't mean to suggest that, but it's actually quite similar in terms of like, whose life are you living? Whose beliefs have you adopted? Who like, oh, well, I've got this job and I've got this position, I've got this and whatever. And that's why people, especially at a certain age, I mean, people can get into trouble when they're younger and people can get into trouble in midlife. And the trouble looks different, maybe more expensive trouble, but the trouble looks like, okay, and who am I now? And that's why there's such, I believe, a movement now. We're at this place in terms of midlife wisdom, next chapter. I have a colleague who's written a thesis and a paper about what she calls middle essence and that life stage of crisis and awareness. And who am I now? So, not to pull away, but just to put in a plug for men is doing this healing work as well. So,
Yeah.
so with that awareness and the awareness of your experience, your own practice, your own wisdom, garnered through hard times and also good times. So, talk a little bit about your work now, if you will. Maybe you want to talk about your book. Always good to plug a book. That what are you focusing on now, and how do you bring that experience and wisdom to the people you serve now?
Well, now I am semi-retired, but I work all day because I like to work. My mom was
So,
Jamaican. I've had a lot of jobs, and I do enjoy being productive. So I retired from the nonprofit that I led for 8 years and took some time, probably about a year, to figure out, what is my next step. I moved to Houston to be closer to family, and that's where I am now. Um, and in the interim, I was offered a position as a search consultant for nonprofits. So I'm kind of in the nonprofit space, leadership space, because I help with searching for executive directors and development directors for the Moran Company. And I like that work because I have a voice and a perspective and a circle of influence that the other search consultants don't have. And so I bring some diversity to the table as well as other certain perspectives that they don't have. And I like that. I also do leadership coaching with for a foundation in Kansas City. They fund a number of nonprofits, and I'm helping some of the smaller nonprofits. So the goal, not the goal. My heart has always been for those less fortunate. And I remember thinking when I worked in higher education, I'm going to have a scholarship for the C student because the A student gets a lot of play and the B plus student gets a lot of play. But there are some hardworking students at the C level who have done a lot of things and are not recognized. So I'm a helper at heart. And so I do those things. I also have the private practice, and I do have my book right here, From Stuck to Unstoppable, and of course a coaching program that goes with it. Well, not of course, but that is the way to move from stuck to unstoppable, is to take some steps, and it takes work. And we're talking about being emotionally stuck, or even as leaders we can be stuck personally. I had a client tell me yesterday, I have got to get my personal leadership together. My professional leadership is fine, but personally I'm just not where I want to be. So, in this stage of life, my tagline is to help you make the rest of your life the best of your life. That's what I want to do personally, by giving back and offering wisdom and experience and knowledge, which is why I'm so glad to be on your podcast, because I hope that's what I'm doing here, is sharing some thoughts. So I'm doing that uh, through the mental health counseling, through the leadership development, through the search, and through just talking about it, having conversations like this.
Great, beautiful. So, could you share a bit about the journey from moving from stuck to unstoppable and how it connects to your spiritual foundation?
Well, that is a big question, and the thumbnail answer is because the kind of work that I do is cognitive behavior therapy, so it's about your mindset. I'm doing a lot of, and I have been intrigued by the mindset of high performing athletes and high performing um, entertainers, because they work so hard, but you have to have a mindset of you are a winner, and you also have a mindset to recover. And I think that is the biggest thing in helping people on the journey, is learning how to recover. I often think of, did you see the movie The Gladiator with Russell Crowe?
Sure.
So I love that movie, but if you're going to be a warrior, a gladiator, a leader, a champion, lots of different words, you've got to learn how to fight offensively and defensively, but you also have to learn how to get back up, because if you stay down, you're going to get killed, right? And I was looking at the Black Panther, Superman movies, all kinds, any kind of Marvel or hero movie. There is a period where the hero wants to give up, but if he just or she just keeps going. So, from stuck to unstoppable is number one, recognizing that you're stuck, which, I've shared the story about me not acknowledging it.
Hmm.
Recognizing that you're stuck, doing the work that you need to become unstuck. That may mean coaching, that may mean self-help development, that may mean counseling, that may mean there's a lot of ways to do it, but you have to do it. So it's a series of professional development and insight related activities that are important. And then you have to learn how to get back up, meaning, how do you recover from disappointment? Maybe that fundraiser only made 30,000 and you was hoping that 50,000 was going to come in. Or maybe yeah, there are lots of ways that we can get disappointed in the workplace, and we can then ascribe that to, especially women. We take it personally, right? I'm not enough. I hear that a lot. I'm not enough. I should have done better. I should have done this, should have done that. So learning how to recover is a big one, and learning how to let offenses roll off like water off a duck's back, because unforgiveness and resentment and bitterness are big, in the political world and in social media, and it's just a cancer that can get into a person's spirit and
Mm.
destroy your spirit. And so we have to learn how to get back up and let things roll off, and how to get back in the game. So you become unstoppable by continuing to get back up and learning from your mistakes, but not allowing your mistakes to sabotage you, or you sabotage yourself by taking it personally.
Mm. Or allowing those mistakes to define you.
Hmm.
Yeah, what I'm hearing too is that the get back up is both a physical thing. I'm thinking about a boxer, but also you were talking about athletes, so my mind went to athletes. But also, get back up is like, for example, tennis players. And I know that some of these world-renowned coaches have talked about the 15 seconds between the end of a point and the beginning of the next one are critical for resetting and coming back. And whatever happened in that last point, what do I need to be ready in sort of a set position, either to serve or receive the ball?
Right.
So and that's above the neck.
Yeah, yeah. That certainly has to do with mindset. It has to do with training. It has to do with being in the present and not allowing that failure, that the thing that just happened to influence the now. And that takes practice. People aren't we don't normally operate like that. We ruminate on most people live in the past or they live in the future. So they're always planning and anticipating for the future, or they're regretting what has happened to them in the past. So it takes training to bring yourself to the present. And that's what athletes have that us normal folks don't have, is somebody training us to be present, to be in the present, and to let some things go and to think about and visualize success.
Mm. So, how do you, if you were to go work in an organization or with an executive director or another leader in a nonprofit, and I believe that's your typical client in that world, correct?
Yeah.
So, you go in there, what type of exercises or processes might you introduce to them to just start to lean into the space that you're talking about?
Well, I have a framework that I use. It's clear, C.L.E.A.R. And so, of course, the first thing is assessment. Where do you want to go, and where are you now, and where do you want to go? Right? So very, very simple, but there's a lot underneath it and there's a lot to it. So it can go deep and broad. But that would be one of the first things, is to talk about, what do you see as areas of improvement? What do you see as, what are some of the people whom you admire? What are some of the qualities and values that you want to start to incorporate into your leadership style? I talked to a new client yesterday, and some of her issue is presence, executive presence. She needs to work on that. So, how do others perceive you? So, there are assessments and things that we do in the first few sessions. And then it's learning about yourself. You can't manage yourself if you don't understand your own motivation. Some of the women that I work with, and I work with men too, but women seem to take things more personally and struggle, although there are many strong women who are in leadership, um, and which is great. Anyway, people pleasing behavior and those motivations that we are socialized with early on, recognizing that in yourself and managing that internal dialogue so that it comes out in your presence and in the way that you want it to come out. And then we have the which is exposing negative thoughts and limiting beliefs. That might be about staff. That might be about, upper management. That might be about, where you think you all are going to go. Then we're going to align for abundance. Let's think bigger. Let's dream bigger, and let's go for it. And then R is replacing ineffective habits, as James Clear says. We say bad habits, but that's a judgment. But ineffective habits are habits that you have that are not leading you in the direction in which you want to go. So that's
Mm,
the assessment. Um, there are many other activities and exercises we do within each of those letters to help the person get to where they want to go.
I appreciate that simple framework and how it's both aspirational, but also very practical and tactical. No, lovely, beautiful. And is that outlined in the book, those 5 steps?
That exactly. These five, the 5 steps are going to be in the next book.
Okay.
This one is more of an overview. I have been wanting to write this book, From Stuck to Unstoppable, probably for 10 years, because when I work with a client, mostly counseling, but also coaching, there's some foundational principles that I share with each of them, about how thoughts and feelings are connected and being insightful. So that's what this book is, but it's not a clear connection to the clear framework that I have.
Mm,
Yeah. So it's
okay.
kind of an
Yeah.
introduction to that.
Hmm. Got it. No, that works. Perfect. And yeah, I was just wondering if people wanted to learn more about that framework, where they could do that.
Well, I have a coaching class coming up in January, so they can go to my e-newsletter website that I think I sent that to you, the SW snippet, because I give a snippet of information twice a month in the e-newsletter, and we'll have a coaching group coming up to really dive deep into that C.L.E.A.R framework. So that's
So
that's that's the only place it is right now.
got it. And that is www.swsnippet.com.
That's
Um,
it.
love it to learn more about that. Absolutely. And then From Stuck to Unstoppable is available on Amazon.
Mhm.
Got it. And is the swsnippet.com the primary website if people wanted to learn more about you and your work, or would that be something else?
Yeah, it would be something else. So the snippet, SW snippet, is for the e-newsletter sign up to stay in continuous contact. But if you want to go to my website, it's secondwindcc.com, because we all can use a second wind. And the CC stands for counseling and consulting. So second wind, all one word spelled out, cc.com. And that's where most of my information is.
Got it. And I'm curious to ask you, just pivoting a little bit here, as you look at the world of nonprofits and the prevalence of burnout and the challenges that nonprofits have now in terms of funding and otherwise, which, don't get me started. But in terms of that world and that sort of forecast, are you at all optimistic that people can lead effectively in these roles despite the challenges? And what do you think are the keys to help them do it?
Well, it is a challenging time. I went to a workshop last week, and they did a word cloud. It was a workshop on, what's next for Houston nonprofits. And the facilitator did a word cloud, and the biggest word that people sent to the poll was uncertain. Um, and I have feelings about a lot of things, but I do know that my ancestors had it worse, as yours did as well, all of ours.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just have a lot of hope that we need to pivot. That's really what it is. I remember the recession of 2007 through 2010. I remember the other recession in 2015. I mean, so you have to learn to pivot and figure out your strategy. So that is what we're doing with many nonprofits. Of course, if they had a lot of government funding, they're going to probably have to make some cuts temporarily or permanently. But helping them to have hope, because there will always be a need and there will always be challenges, but there will always be people who have overcome challenges. And when we think about mindset, that's what we have to think about is, how can I adjust and adapt so that we can survive? And, that is what has a lot of nonprofit leaders worried. But you do what you can, and then you talk to other people, you try to get as much information as you can, and then you do the best that you can. And you try to, you just keep going.
Right. And gather support where you can.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, what comes up to me as you say that is, integrity and leading with integrity is not for the faint of heart. This is a tough watering hole that we're in here, especially maybe particularly in the non-for-profit world. It's very challenging and it's not for the faint of heart. But fortunately, in my experience, the people who are leading in that space have plenty of heart and strong hearts. So perhaps, you're not given anything you can't handle. Those strong hearts will be tested.
I love that. Strong hearts. Absolutely. And that's how you become strong, is by being tested. So I work out every day, and I'm in strength training. And the way to get stronger is to have heavier weights. I mean, you don't want to break down well, our muscles do break down and then recover, but you have to have resistance. And that's how we become stronger. So looking at the resistance as an opportunity, now, that's easy to say, but when you're in the seat, it's much more difficult. But trying to look at what is the opportunity here? What is the opportunity? And then checking in with your spirituality to um, try to muster wisdom and discernment so that you can navigate to what that next thing is.
Discernment, and I hear that as you're describing it as a key input to decision making. Which way to go in the fork in the road. I can look within, or I can look to some foundation to help with that decision.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
beautiful.
let's not discount our inner wisdom, which, we call it our inner voice. There are lots of names for it. That's why it's important to take care of yourself and spend that time cultivating that inner voice, or the spiritual aspect of yourself, so that you have that wisdom with you.
Hmm. Yeah, and what I'm hearing too is this is very practical. This is not some squishy, esoteric thing. This is like, no, in order to function in this world at a high level, we need to be able to direct and guide ourselves and connect to that North Star compass, lighthouse, whatever that might be. And in order to do that, we need to quiet down. We need to tune in. Some of that may be spiritual practice for people if they choose to call it that. I know that it's interesting with a recent group of men. I was talking about how many of us, myself included, have been afraid to really get quiet because when we really get quiet, there's voices that we can hear that I may not want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And that could be the subject of a whole other podcast or five. But, and when we really get quiet, so too are the healthier, positive, aspirational, deeper, encouraging voices of wisdom, the voices of the sages with us, not just the saboteurs, which we
Yeah.
might be concerned about. But those sage voices can be heard, and it's so difficult to hear them in this noisy world that you mentioned.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was talking with a nonprofit executive director, just trying to help her to release some things and dial down her anxiety. But there's so many things that an executive director has to do, and she was feeling the pressure. Um, so we can miss the wisdom by the doing, the doing, and the busyness. Yeah, and it looks like you're productive, but are you? Are you really?
Well, and productive with the right thing, not
Right,
busy, productive.
right, right. Exactly.
Right. So what just as a way of winding this up, I'd love to ask a tactical question that what do you offer and what do you offer as suggestions or possibly tactics for breaking out of the do like how do we break out of that?
Well, the one suggestion that I have that I hope everybody listening will take heed is the pause. And giving yourself permission when you feel that anxiety, that overwhelm, that intensity. There are a lot of words for it, but when you feel it creeping up, to allow yourself to step away from the desk or the computer for even just 2 minutes, and go outside if you're able to, and connect with nature, because nature has a calming, relaxing influence on us. So I'm a Christian, and my belief is that, well, I don't have to get into that, but I heard somebody say, we were created in a garden, so that's why we connect with nature, right? But whatever your beliefs are, nature helps us to slow down. And there's a quote that says, uh, "In nature, nothing is hurried, yet everything gets accomplished." So connecting with that and giving yourself permission to step away and dial down your whatever the word is, I think it reinforces the wisdom and discernment that is needed to go back into the ring to say, okay, what is the next best move? All right, to not just do, because not everything you do. So, and I think I mentioned this to you in our pre-convo. There are a lot of things you want to do, and there are many things that you probably should do. I hate using the word should, but I will. But as the leader, there are only a few things that only you can do. And that's what you have to focus on, are only the things that only you can do, and try to delegate the rest. And so that helps with the priorities in terms of stepping away and then readjusting your thinking to like, okay, what are only the things that I can do that are on my plate or on my to-do list right now? And then you get back into the ring and you knock it out. And when it starts to creep back up or people are calling and emailing and, knocking on the door, just wait a minute, I'll be right back and just step away because that margin time is what I called it, gives you a chance to recalibrate.
Mm.
And when you're
Yeah.
just doing, it's like you're going 90 miles an hour on the freeway. You miss some things.
Well, yes, I love how you call it margin time. That's beautiful. And yes, you miss some things and you miss the people who perhaps it's very difficult to connect with people when they're waiting on the side of the road for you and you're going by 90 miles an hour.
Right.
Hard thing to do. But margin time, I love that. I really appreciate that wisdom. So you've talked about the website for Second Wind. You also have a personal website. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, my name, Dacia Moore,
All right,
.com.
Dacia Moore. Got it. And the book is on Amazon. There's swsnippet.com. I know you have a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah,
Dacia Moore, DICIA, and Moore with MOORE.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. I know it will continue in some form or another. And just I appreciate the work that you do and have a lot of respect and admiration for the work that you do and the way that you do it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing to help folks in leadership to become better and to become their best selves. So thank you for having me and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for listening to Spirituality in Leadership. If you want to access this wealth of knowledge and insight on a regular basis, please subscribe to the show. Join the network of leaders who want to do and be better. You can go to the site spiritualityinleadership.com or your preferred podcast platform to catch all the episodes and learn more. Until next time, take good care of yourself.